What's going on, everybody? It's Seth Van Dale here and Nicholas Cormier with the Marketing Foundations podcast. Today we have a guest by the name of Tommy Sigman. Tommy is calling in all the way from Louisiana. He is a real estate agent down there, has an incredible story on how he got to where he is. And now he's hopping on here to kind of share some knowledge and what he's learned along the way. So thank you so much for hopping on here, Tommy.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. Yeah, so we were just kind of chatting before this call about like your background and how you got to where you are. And we were just chatting a little bit about Justin Waller, and you said you had a funny story about him. You want to share that?
Yeah. So Justin Waller, he's definitely one of the bigger players here in Baton Rouge. He's pretty known across the board here. I mean, his construction company is massive. Me and him had a mutual connection, a mutual friend, and I reached out to him on Facebook. And we talked a few times, and I'm known in real estate in the area. He's known in construction and in real estate. So we talked on Facebook. My phone kind of glitched out one day and logged me out of my messenger, and I didn't notice. But we
Hmm.
made plans about us potentially meeting up, and he invited me to his house. He was like, "Hey, I'm here. I'm at home this evening. If you want to come by." And that would have been so cool. But I didn't realize my Facebook was logged out. So I saw his text about a week after he invited me over. And then once I
Yeah.
responded, he never responded after that. It looked like I just flaked out on him. But
Damn.
that would have been pretty cool. That still bugs me sometimes thinking about how I could have been hanging out at Justin Waller's house.
Damn. Yeah, we just signed on Justin Waller. We're going to be working with his construction company. We've already done some work for him. But yeah, we're helping promote his courses, and yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, he's doing a lot of things, especially in the house flipping world. So I'm sure we'll get into
Yeah.
that. But that's one thing I'm pretty prevalent here is really house flipping and wholesaling, selling
Mhm.
contracts, flipping houses. And I know he's doing a lot. He's partnered with a guy out of Lafayette now that really does a lot of flips and a lot of transactions in the Lafayette area, which is another part of Louisiana, another city
Yep.
down here. And he's making a lot of moves. So that's a great guy to sign on for sure.
Absolutely. So most of our listeners are home builders, guys just kind of getting into construction, newer entrepreneurs. So that's kind of be what we're going to chat about mostly today. But I'd love to get your perspective on on construction, where you see it's going, and like how has the house flipping industry changed from when you first started to now?
I think I don't know as far as I haven't been in the industry for super long. So from an industry standpoint, I don't know how much the industry has really changed. I've been in it for about 2 years. I can
Okay.
say our personal focuses have shifted a lot in the last 2 years we've been involved in it. So when we first started, our vision was we were going to flip every house that came into our world. We were going to renovate, resell, and we're also a brokerage, so we can list houses cheaper. We don't have to pay the agent fees on the listing side. So that was our model, you would say. But recently, we've really pivoted more to focus on wholesaling. And wholesaling, for
Mhm.
those that don't know, is not selling, flipping the house, but it's selling the contracts. So if
Yep.
we have a house under contract for 150,000, we can sell that contract to another home flipper for 160, 170, and do that. And there's a lot of pros to doing that. Sometimes you won't make as big of a spread, but there's also it saves you from a lot of risk, right? We've had a
Yep.
lot of deals that we bought that we thought were going to be massive, and then we took a big L on those deals a few times.
Mhm.
So there's less risk. It's faster. You can like I had we one of our best deals or one of the best ones that I've done personally. A guy called me on a Thursday and he said, "Hey, I have a deal. I have this massive luxury house that burned down." And he said the guy needs to get out of it by next week. Insurance is making him a hassle, all these things. Who do you know that buys houses this size that would do this magnitude of a flip? So he probably called me on a Thursday, and the next week by that Wednesday, we were closing it with somebody. We made $22,000 on that deal. So in a matter of a week, from the time I got the call and found out, we closed next week and both got paid on it. So there's
Wow.
just a lot of there's it's more speed, right? Which lets you do
Mhm.
things faster, recuperate cash faster. So we're more focusing on that. So I think our goal for 2025 is for probably every 5 houses we wanted to flip, we'll probably actually flip maybe one or two and wholesale 3 to 4. Is that's kind of
Mhm.
our new model now. So I think we're so young that we're still learning as we're going. And there's other guys, there's a million different people that do it differently too. Some people, like one of the biggest guys I know, he flips every house and it works for him. But we're a little bit of a bigger team, so I think we're kind of figuring out our groove still and where we fit in the area, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Nick, do you have any questions?
Sweet. I wanted to, well, not really a question, but I wanted to like just highlight like just like the story that you first brought up when we jumped on the call before we started recording, where Tommy, obviously you like, I want to showcase your story in terms of like, hey, you can start here, but you can, you can make waves and make a movement.
Mhm.
So if you can share your story, which you told us at the start of the call, just like, I don't know, if
Yeah.
maybe five, just kind of like a nice summary, and then hopefully we can also record another one and showcase more too.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. So basically, long story short, my background is I came through the foster care system. And for people that don't
Mm-hmm.
know what happens to foster kids after foster care, there's about a 95% chance that you will be in prison, homeless, or on drugs within 5 years of aging out. The statistics are terrifying. It's really bad. It does not work out for almost anybody that goes through foster care. And because of that, people that go through foster care, you're only there if you go through an extreme where you have to be there. The state does not want to take you in their placement unless they have to. So my situation was a little unique. Me and both my parents, we have a good relationship now, but they had, their issues, and they had me super young as teenagers, and my mom went through foster care. So there was just a lot to overcome for everybody in my family that just never was probably really dealt with from a young age, which led to me being in foster care as a teenager. So most people also get in when they're young. I was put in when I was 14. So basically, my story was from 14 really to 18. I was moving around, going to different homes, different families. My case was different though, because I never was put with a random family, you would say. I always found my own family, which is never really been done. I would basically find a friend or a family I knew well, and I would say, hey, would you guys consider fostering me, becoming a foster parent, and almost recruit my own families, which the state was not fond of because it wasn't the usual, right? Typically they place you where they place you, and that's all it is. I never really allowed them to navigate my case that way. So when I was 15, I actually published a book about going through the adversity and the challenges of foster care. And it wasn't even really DCFS, which is Department of Children and Family Services. It wasn't even really focused on DCFS or foster care. The whole premise of the book is actually how to take pain, how to take adversity, and practically use it as leverage to become successful and motivation and those things. But
Mm-hmm.
from the book, there was a lot of publicity on foster care. So we had news stations coming to the school. We were doing interviews on podcasts. And DCFS, it was never talked bad about them, but their name being brought into the conversation, they had a pretty big issue with. Because DCFS does so many shady things that they want no attention on the system. If you talk about the system, they don't want anything to be talked about whatsoever, because there's never anything good to highlight, truthfully. So they basically came after me and said, "You can't promote this book. You have to take the book down." And I said, "Well, on what grounds? Like, why would I have to not publish a book?" And basically, their argument was because as foster care, we're your legal parents, and we told you no. So my thought was, well, I'll just do what every teenager does and just not listen, and I'll just do it anyways. So it became a court battle. A judge read the book, took my side, said this is ridiculous. This should be promoted. This is a good thing for foster care. Luckily, that judge took my back and told me that I have full reins to promote the book and continue doing what I was doing. And I was probably the only foster kid, I would say, in history that they tried to kick out of foster care. My attorney and a social worker came to me and said, hey, they are requesting that you get emancipated, which means they're asking you to get out of the system since you're not listening. But if I would have done that, that would have eliminated all my benefits from being in foster care, like the financial, things I get through college and whatnot, if I decided to take that. So I pretty much just said, no, I'm just going to stick in the system, continue doing what I'm doing, promote my book, and that's going to be it. And that's what I did. So we've never really seen eye to eye. But now, through foster care, through the book, I met Wyatt Graves, who's a big real estate player here in Baton Rouge. And me and him
Okay.
kind of really teamed up on building his businesses and running these companies, real estate related. So through all that, it kind of just worked out that me and him created these partnerships we have now to build the real estate companies.
Wow.
That's
That's
amazing.
incredible.
I would completely agree that adversity is the number one thing that does build your strength and your character and into who you are. You know what I mean? There's a lot of times where, probably situations where, being in the foster care system, you kind of feel like there's no like path in a way because you're moving around from families and there's so much change. But as an example, to think about like what your position is now, that actually all built you into who you are. Because in business, I mean, there's too many unknown things, risks that you take, things that could be going on, and you don't quite see the path because you're building, you're scaling, and you know you're learning. And so now the amount of stress and pain and tolerance that you can probably face now because of those experiences in the past actually are huge. But it's actually so hard
True.
to think about because when you put yourself into like, when you think back to that time and you feel those emotions, you're like, dude, I never want to feel that again, or I never wanted that to happen. But as an example, obviously, time just keeps playing out, and realistically, it's in a way maybe a good thing that it happened. It's just a different way to think about it, but a good thing that it happened to you because you wouldn't be the same Tommy Sigman that you are now if that never happened to you. Maybe you'd be a completely different guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think about that pretty often. I fully agree. I heard a quote the other day that I thought this really stuck with me. It said that nobody understands how much violence it took to become this gentle. And that really I thought was
Mhm.
powerful because when I was younger, it made no sense to me at all. I was like, man, all these kids have all these perfect parents and families and Christmases, and I'm going through this kind of dark world through I was 14, asking every family I knew, like, hey, can I interview to become your child, essentially? It was just really unique. But now with what you said with pain tolerance and risk tolerance, I mean, none of it really matters to me. Like me not going to college and me going all in at real estate was at 18 seemed like a no-brainer because I'm like, what's the worst that can
What do you
happen? I
have
mean,
to
I've
lose?
already,
Yep.
like
Yeah.
what if I don't make it? What am I going to live with one of my foster parents till I'm a little bit older? I mean, I don't know. I didn't see any real risk associated with it because I'm like, I have food, I have clothes. Why not just shoot for the top? Why not go for everything
Yep.
I can?
Absolutely.
So
And
no,
and is there
I'm with
something to
you.
be said, Tommy, like about how like there is kind of like a rock bottom and that's a zero
Mhm.
or a negative. You could have debt or whatever too, I guess, right? But like to think about like emotionally, like in a way that probably was the rock bottom. So anything that happens to you now, losing money, maybe you had a bad flip, probably that pain doesn't even come close to that feeling that you did feel back then. I don't know if I'm that's just
No,
a
when I
thought,
when I
but
was when I was 13, when I moved out of I moved out of my dad's house because it was too rough and there was too much going on there. I moved in with this one family when I was 14, and man, people always thought like, bro, you must be so upset that you're living with like this random family, and I'm like, you have no idea how good it feels to be able to walk out into the kitchen and make a sandwich. Like that was a luxury I didn't have over here because there was no dishes, there was no groceries, it was gross. And then to come to this family and say, man, I can walk out and make a sandwich. I didn't have that for a few years. So I'm not worried about all the stresses of, who's my biological mom. I'm just happy I have clean food, water, stability. Like this is the life. This is luxury right here. So
Mhm.
now in business, it definitely translated. I would agree fully.
Wow.
that's awesome. And then what like to go back into the construction side of things for any other, you know, you know, other people who want to get into the real estate space, whether it's flipping houses, doing contracting, general contracting, whatever their role is, what would be your advice to somebody who has the skill of building or they know real estate already but they haven't fully committed? Because it sounds like you had to take you had to burn the ships, if you've heard that saying.
Yeah.
You had to like, go all in. And so what would you say to the people who haven't gone all in yet?
My thought would be, what would you really have to lose? I was talking with this guy at lunch last week, and he told me I think he was 26, 27. He has his college degree. He has a 9 to 5 job. He had $30,000 saved up, and he said, I'm thinking about going all in. He said, but I just don't know if it's the right move. And I'm like, man, what do you have to lose? Like, you have over 6 months of expenses. Like, you will figure out how to make money. And it's crazy too. When you have to do something, you will just do it. You will figure out a way. If you have no money and your bills are due next week, your mind will be blown by how creative you can get so quickly. You always figure it out when you have to. So I think having this safety net keeps people stuck because they have this vision that one day I will make the jump, one day I'll go all in. And you're just not until you have to. You know what I mean? When I was 18, I had a full ride to Tulane University, which is an Ivy League school here in Louisiana, and LSU and the schools. Because when you go through foster care, you have free tuition to any school you can get accepted into. And I had like a 4.2 GPA, so I was pretty set. But so my confliction was, do I want to go to Tulane because everyone's saying I have to take advantage of this. Everyone's saying you have to do this, you have to take that. That's too big of an opportunity. But my thought was, you don't need a degree to be in real estate. You just need skills and connections. And my thought was, is it worth the 4 years I'm going to spend for the degree to then not use the degree? So I ended up not going, and everyone told me that was an awful idea. There was not a single person that validated my decision to not go to Tulane. Everyone said, like, you should just go maybe for a semester, take classes, like trying to kind of get me to, to dip my toes in the water to try it. And
but as soon as you dip them in, you're going to be screwed, eh?
And I knew that. You guys are trying to trick me into getting a degree, and I'm not going to do it. I don't want this safety net. And my thing is like, I'd rather have to make this work or continue trying to make it work than to say, I'll go take a $50,000 a year salary in a 401k and play it safe. I'd rather just keep on trying until it happens than to go that route. So I'd say if you're on the fence, just do it. Just jump into it. You're never going to do it until you just do it.
I would 100% agree. Me and Nick took the same exact standpoint when we were 18. We both could have went to school, right, for business, for marketing, whatever we wanted. But instead, we quit our jobs. Actually, we walked in and quit our jobs together when we were both 18 and went all in on marketing. We didn't have a client. We didn't know how to even market. Nothing. We had nothing in place.
Nothing.
But we were just like, awesome. Screw it. Zero savings. Like, let's just go for it. And we went for it. And you're right. When you put yourself in that situation where it's live or die and you got to pay the bills and you got zero money in your account, that first week, I remember we made like, dude, it was like our first month, we made like 20K just from selling websites door to door.
Wow.
Door to door, yeah.
Yeah, door to door selling websites, dude. It was actually crazy.
We made lots of mistakes too, but see, we figured it all out because we made 20, but we invested like 10 into this thing, so they'd be like a white label provider, but then they just sucked, right? Like the delivery sucked, and then we're like, we lost this 10 grand, and we don't have a website developer anymore because these guys suck. So then, we figured out something else. We hired someone else, sold some more deals, and it's
and I'd be willing to bet too that even when everything sucked, like even when when you guys found out that company did that bad service and all the things, y'all were probably having more fun and more excitement in that dip than you guys would have been in your jobs. Like I think it's the progression that makes
so true, man.
It's the progression that makes us feel fulfilled. It's the feeling as if, I'm moving forward, even if that means taking a step backwards, than just being complacent with where you are. I think that's really what kills people. That's why you have to make the jump, because it's killing you even feeling that safety feeling of just staying complacent for so long.
Well, it's more of a risk to not take the risk. You know what I mean? Like it's more of a risk to not take the risk because otherwise you are just going to sit and work a dead end 9-to-5 job. Maybe it's not dead end, but you know what I mean? Like you're going to work a 9-to-5 job forever. You're going to get your 401k and then you're going to retire when you're 60, 65. And by that time, when you have money and freedom, you're too old to do anything with it. So I'd rather take the risk now, sacrifice my 20s and live in my 30s and 40s. So I can go sit on a yacht on the beach in Mexico for, however long I want when I'm 30.
Yeah. And even if it fails, you can always go back to the job too. That's why I think the whole the whole perception of risk is not even real, because it's the idea,
That's
well, I don't
not.
want to make the jump, because you can always go back to the job. There will always be another job, especially if you
Yeah.
Yeah.
have skills. Like, you can go
Yeah,
right
that's
back.
facts.
It's like if you run out of money,
Oh,
you can go back to a job and save up some more money. It's all
yeah.
just perception and programming that people built up to have the feeling other than need of
Agreed.
safety. But it's not
Yep.
even real in reality.
I
And the
wanna
skills
wanna
that you get when
expand.
you work for yourself are like totally, you can't even get close to building that skill set when you're working for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. I wanted to expand quickly on you mentioned, like, even when it's the worst and you're doing it on your own, you're still actually having way more fun. And I just want to like create a little story about that. Is when me and Seth we started our first company, and like, man, we learned a lot in that company, but then we ended up shutting it down, just I would say more due to not having the information. We ran that business for 2 years, and it was our first company, and we hired too
We
many
grew it too
people.
quick is what
Maybe,
actually
yeah, we
happened.
grew too quick, and
Mm-hmm.
essentially, and we grew a big team, but we kept our personal wages really, really modest. Like, I'm talking very modest. Like,
Below
probably
minimum
wasn't even
wage.
enough. Yeah, it was like terrible. We were working like 20 hours a day and making less than minimum wage. But dude, we had so much fun. And when we ended that, me and Seth, we both took on new jobs for like a short period of time, and I was going door to door to like 20 companies a day, maybe 30 companies a day, and I put on 50,000, maybe in miles, 30,000 miles on my car in 1 year. Like, I thought that was a lot, and so
Yeah.
anyways, I hated. Sounds bad, but I hated my life working there. I felt like I had no purpose. I was making way more money than what I was paying myself in our own company. And but then me and Seth, once we had everything handled from that first business, we then started this business again,
We
right?
just
Mm-hmm.
got
And
up and went at it
we
again. We
got
never
up and went
quit.
at it again. And essentially, as soon as we started our own business again, man, my purpose, just my drive
Your
went way
depression
up again.
disappeared. Yeah.
My depression disappeared, dude. I was working that job, and dude, I was sleeping till 8:30 in the morning, getting up 9 o'clock. Okay, I'm gonna go drive 2 hours to go and try to sell 10 companies in this town, but I did not like it. I didn't feel the purpose. Like, how was I
Mm-hmm.
making an impact in anyone's life other than selling a subscription that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
100%, dude. There's something that's almost tangible, like an energy within you, when you can feel the progress. Like, you feel like, hey, I'm working my
Yep.
hardest to actually build something that's leading me to the life that I desire. I think the reason that people go to college and they take the job with the 401k and safety net is because they don't have the clarity on where do I actually want to be in 5 years, 10 years from now. They're just going with the motions of what they're supposed to be doing, and they let everyone else build their life for them, and they just walk through those steps. That if you actually thought for a second, like, what's so powerful about doing what you guys are doing and building your own business is you can see the vision. You can see in 5 years, I want to be on the yacht, sitting on the beach, doing the thing. Like, and I am taking the progressive steps to get to that point versus just letting life just throw you around. So I agree. And I'm thinking, if you don't work for yourself, like if you work for a company and you want to get promoted, you want to be the boss, just start taking the role and acting on it. The reason that
Yep.
I'm in the position with the guy that I have, or we're kind of partnered, and we're still getting clarity on exactly what this looks like going forward. So there's still some gray area we're getting clear on. But the reason that this was even happened is because I identified, there are some key holes in these companies that needs to be filled. He's not paying me to fill them, but if I want to get paid to fill them, I'm not going to ask him for the position. I'm going to fill them, prove my value, and then go to him and say, hey, this is what I've done. Let me keep doing this. Let me keep running with this. And if
Uh-huh.
you got to just get clear, like, what do I want? And let me go after that. And I think having your own business is usually the best way because you're in full control. But if
Yep.
you have a partnership like I do, or you want to be the boss, identify where are the key holes in this company, and let me just become a problem solver. Let me
Uh-huh.
own the role to then become the role. and just start doing it. You know what I mean?
I love that, man. That's the best thing ever. Like, you didn't go to him saying, "Hey, I want 10 grand a month," or something like this. You went to him like, "Hey, I can solve all these things for you." Boom, 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 boom. And then when you do a review, he's like, "Dude, I haven't paid." It's probably maybe what kind of happened. He's like, "Dude, I haven't even paid you. You did all this?" And you're like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
And then you're like, "Hey, but we need to do this, this, and this." And then he's like, "Okay, well, let's make something
Well,
happen here because."
my where I really kind of fit my role was I saw that in the sales, every company is a sales company that offers a service, right? Everything is
Yep.
just marketing and sales, getting your leads, converting the leads, and then you service the leads with whatever you provide. I noticed that in the real estate agent team, the house flipping team, across all the different companies, there was no real sales system. Like there's no real accountability system, KPI, dashboard meeting. And I kind of just went around and said, hey, we're building real sales systems. We are going to become an efficient, real sales company. Here's the sales model for what we're now going to follow. And I'm going to this guy and saying, hey, I know here's all your numbers from last year that I figured out because they weren't being tracked. Now we're tracking them, we're measuring them, and we have real sales systems that we're all following. And he's like, oh my gosh, like this guy just came in and just freaking fixed everything. Like this guy was the piece we needed. But I didn't ask him for permission. I didn't say I want to get paid for this. I just started doing it and said, I want to keep doing this. Let me run your sales team. Let's partner. I will run your operations and do this for every department. And you can just go focus on scaling and buying more companies for me just to plug into. And that's kind of
Yep.
what we're figuring out that role now. But that anybody can do that though. You don't even have to start like there's no risk to me. It's really to him. You don't have if you're not starting your own business and taking the jump like you guys are and you're in an organization, just become a problem solver and own the role you want to have and then
Yep.
show what you've done and ask for the role.
That's so true. I'd like to touch on one last thing before we jump off the pod here, but I think that there is a direct correlation with the trauma that you go through as a kid and your risk tolerance as an adult. And I think that, if you go through a tougher childhood where you have to persevere, you have so many more skills and so much more risk tolerance when you're an adult within entrepreneurship. Because like me and Nick, for instance, when we were first starting the business, we went through so many times where we had to take massive risk, and we were constantly taking risk every single day. And I realistically, looking back at it, the average person probably would have folded multiple times. And not one point did we ever feel stressed or did we ever want to quit. It never ran through our head. We're never like, oh, we're going to have to quit, or, you know what I mean? Like it was always like just, full force forward every single day. And none of the risk ever really like phased us at all. And I think that all comes down to like we both didn't have the bestest childhoods, and not to say that yours was like Tommy. It sounds like your story was absolutely that would have been very hard for you to go through. But we all kind of have our own stories, and we kind of had some of that trauma that we went through as a kid as well that gave us that risk tolerance. And I think that translates into so many other people's stories as well, like yours as well. Correct?
100%. I think when somebody's so used to walking the line that was made for them, to then deviate from that line, it's more the perception of how uncomfortable it feels. Oh, this is too much, that they can't handle it. But when you are just born in a way where there's no line, there's no set definition for how you're living your life, you're going through whatever world you were born into. And that's usually out of control, no real straight path, then it doesn't matter. Like I always think, what's the worst? Like what's the worst that can really happen? I'm not going to be homeless. I have too many friends who have a couch if worst comes to worst. I have enough money saved where, I have expenses, all that stuff. Like I'm not going to go bankrupt. And even if I do go bankrupt, then what? You just restart. Like restart. I always just think like none of it doesn't really matter. It's just so in people's minds. But I 100% agree with you. I think that we can break out of that and see that because we grew up in a way where there wasn't a set line to walk down. So I fully agree.
Yeah, I bet you if we, asked 100 other entrepreneurs that have successful businesses, a lot of them would share a similar story that, oh yeah, my childhood sucked, this happened here. And that gave them that risk tolerance to just go out on their own and keep going. So
and that's the premise of my book too, The Greatest Advantage, That's
Yep.
all kind of the premises of what it talks about. It's about how your adversity is your greatest advantage, because if you choose to, it can mold you into that character that's not afraid of risk, that can work endlessly, that has a fuel within them. So I think that, like, looking when I was going through foster care, none of it made sense. But now as an adult, I'm like, thank God. I praise God for his hand over my life and for
Amen.
going through those struggles.
That's huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Tommy, I really appreciate you hopping on the podcast today.
Can we
Is there
share
any
his
last?
link to the book?
Yeah, yeah.
Can we
Well,
put that
I'll
in
go
the
after.
link?
Yeah.
I'll go
Yeah,
through
it's
that,
on.
but I appreciate you sharing your story today. And if somebody wants to get in touch with you, learn more about what you do, and how they can maybe connect with you, where's the best place that they can get a hold of you?
Probably definitely social media.
Okay.
You look up Tommy Sigman on Facebook or Instagram and just reach out to me, send me a DM or a messenger. That'd be
Okay.
awesome. Justin Waller, I apologize for missing your message. If we can reconnect.
That's awesome.
But yeah, or if they, if they hear this and they want to know more about real estate or buying and selling real estate, or even have questions, and I can just be a resource for them, then I'd be happy to help. Even if they're
Awesome.
wholesaling in another state, I'd be happy just to be a resource they can talk to.
And then your book can be found on Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. If you look up The Greatest Advantage, it's on pretty much every platform books are sold.
Okay. Wonderful. I'll have to pick that up and give it a read. Yeah, Nick, did you have anything else to go over before we jump off?
No, that's pretty much everything, I guess, for this podcast, but I really appreciate you jumping on, Tommy. Your story is incredible, and one thing I like to always say is this is the beginning, and then to add on to what Patrick David always says, the future looks bright.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing.
Sure that.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you all for having me on.
Yeah, no worries at all. Thanks for hopping on, Tommy.
Sweet. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.